Hey everyone, we're going to talk about the end of World War II today. And to get started on that, we have to see what happened to the president. So, President FDR, Franklin D. Roosevelt, had died after being elected to a fourth term in office, just as World War II was coming to an end, as the final steps were needed to defeat Japan. The other Axis powers, Germany and Italy, have been defeated at this point. All the Allies are focusing now on defeating Japan. So, since FDR had died, his vice president, Harry Truman, now becomes the president. So, Truman quickly wants to end this war. He does it to, as many people are going to tell the American public, to save American lives. But he also had other motivations. So, he was in a meeting with the Allies, and specifically with the Russian leader, the communist Soviet leader, Joseph Stalin, and he secretly gets news that a secret government project called the Manhattan Project has been successful. And what the Manhattan Project created was atomic bombs. As you see here, it says the A bomb. So the atomic bombs have been successfully tested. So Truman wants to use these atomic bombs to end the war quickly and save American lives, but also the Soviets want to get involved in the war in the Pacific and help defeat Japan, but Truman doesn't want this. He sees that if the Soviets get involved, they're going to try to make Japan, or at least part of Japan, a communist country, something the United States is totally against. So there's two reasons really why Truman wants to use the atomic bomb: to end the war quickly and save American lives, but also so the war will end before the Soviets could get involved. So, here are the two bombs that are going to be used against Japan. There's Fat Man and Little Boy. So, Fat Man is going to be used on the Japanese city of Hiroshima first. Let it be known that the United States tried to get the Japanese to surrender after the other Axis powers had lost, after Germany and Italy were defeated, but they refused. So Truman used the atomic bomb to end the war quickly, and 300,000 are in total going to be killed from this bomb. Japan refused to surrender after that bomb fell, even though it was a huge, devastating weapon that no one had ever really seen before. A second bomb was dropped on the city of Nagasaki, where another 150,000 are going to be killed. After this happens, Japan sees that they really have no way to fight this new power and are going to unconditionally surrender and cite that the world now has this new devastating power that is the most cruel bomb. This is a super controversial decision. Should any power be able to have a weapon that can instantly kill people on this magnitude, on this scale? So let's take another look at it. So this is before and after of the two cities. This is Hiroshima, and you could see the neighborhoods and the buildings that are around here, and they're just dust afterwards. There's barely any buildings standing. In Nagasaki, the story is a lot different. It's a lot more of a developed city that you see here, and afterwards you can hardly see anything, and it's really sad when you think about it. But we have to understand Truman's motivation. But after this event, people in countries never really want to use these bombs against each other again, and we are stuck in this is going to lead to the escalation of countries trying to get their own bombs and create an arms race, if you will. So here are some images of what would happen if you were exposed to the bomb, if you were able to survive the initial blast, or if you even got radiation poisoning and chemical burns. And they're pretty devastating pictures to look at. And it really scares the world into thinking that the US and then soon after this many countries having this new power. So what this leads to, well, before we do that, let's do a quick recap of this whole Pacific theater, the war in the Pacific, if you will. So before anything even gets started, the U.S. commits these flying tigers to volunteer before the U.S. even gets involved in the war. FDR had these people resign, and they went to go help the Chinese before Pearl Harbor was even attacked. On December 7th, 1941, Pearl Harbor is attacked, which causes the U.S. to declare war on Japan. The Bataan Death March is going to occur, and the U.S. is going to have many troops taken and killed on a death march where people are going to starve to death and be exhausted by heat and as they're marched to prison camps. The Battle of Midway is going to occur actually before that, just a month or two before that, and America is going to have a turning point in the war in the Pacific as they are able to fend off Midway Island and defeat the Japanese force that was almost 2 times the size of the U.S. naval force. The U.S. will then attack on 2 fronts in the Pacific with an island hopping strategy, and both meet up in the Philippines. So Admiral Chester Nimitz for Navy, is going to use the Navy and attack on the northern side, and General MacArthur is going to attack with the U.S. Army and some Navy units and hop across the Pacific, capturing the Japanese, building military bases, and hopping to the next island until they converge onto the Philippines and help liberate those troops that were captured in the Bataan Death March. Then the U.S. has to decide, how do they win this war? Well, Truman decides to drop the atomic bombs, ending the war. And that leads to VJ Day, or Victory Over Japan Day. America has now caused Japan to surrender with Hiroshima, with the atomic bombs droppings on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and the world is going to celebrate VJ Day. Well, that's it for World War II and the Pacific theater of the war. I hope you learned something today. Thanks, guys.